Hey everybody, my name is Freddy Ledesma. I was asked to give a testimony about how God brought me from where I was. I was raised by a single mom who had 5 kids. It was me, my sisters, and my brother, 5 of us. We moved constantly. We weren't always in the same place. Her not having enough money to pay the rent. Uh, so we constantly moved from house to house, city to city, school from school. So it was pretty hard just to have a stable life. So you were just constantly moving, and you had friends here, then all of a sudden you moved from those friends to another friend. So you really didn't have that trust in anybody. So you constantly were just on the move. And that, I think, really that impacted my life growing up. So in my elementary school age, I had a disability. I couldn't really read. I couldn't talk right. And I was in special ed classes all the time. And people would say all the time that I was dumb, and I believed them. And I took that as who I was. And so throughout my school years, I would always carry that with me, that I couldn't be taught anything. I couldn't learn. When people said you're dumb, you're not going to accomplish anything, why even worry about homework? And so I would just go and hang out with my friends, come back late at night, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning, and go to sleep, and then, wait for my mom to say, hey, it's time to go to school, get ready for school. She couldn't take us to school, so we had to wait for the bus. But we really didn't go to the bus stop. We would just wait for the bus to come, pass by, wait for my mom's car to leave the parking spot, and head back to the house and pretend that I went to school, and make sure before 3:15, before she got home, before the school called saying, hey, your kid was absent today, I would get it and hang up so she couldn't hear the recording. I just thought what people thought I was, just being dumb. So, growing up, I didn't have a father. Some of the father figures that I have were, you know, guys that were, like my uncles or my mom's boyfriends, my dad, who weren't really around to show me the things that a true man would be. I had, my uncles would take me out and have me sell drugs or carry drugs for them, carry weapons for them as we were traveling with them, doing not good things. And some of my mom's boyfriends, they weren't really there, even though I would wanted them to be my dad. They just weren't the right father figures in my life. And, so for an early age, it was hard to really look for somebody to be my dad. And part of that was what attracted me to the gang culture, the gang life, was I saw all these guys, they look cool. They look like they were like these awesome guys that hang around because they always had money. They had nice cars, even though if you went to their house, they were living pretty poor, but they always had nice clothes. They always had the good girls. And I felt like that was something that I wanted, that the only thing that I could connect to, because there was nothing else for me to connect to. And I thought that that would be the only thing. And so I started hanging out with them, thinking that this was the life for me. And it for a while it was. And for a while I thought, hey, I'm going to be this guy. But then all of a sudden I met a family who took me to a church service. It was actually Christmas Eve. I was 17 years old. And for the first time, I heard the gospel of Jesus Christ and how he loved me. I mean, as a child, I would go to church events. Sometimes my friends, they would go to churches, or, for a special occasion like Easter or Christmas and stuff, we would attend church. My grandpa was a minister, but he didn't live the life of a minister. So it was kind of hard to believe what was right and what was wrong, So I, my best friend Philip, his family actually started going to a church. His mom and dad, they started being different. Their life had changed. So his mom had asked both of us to go to a Christmas service, and we went. And as we sat in service, we were the ones in the back, arms crossed, not paying attention. Just really not looking at the minister as he was preaching. Back then we didn't have any cell phones, so we weren't like looking at our phones. We were just talking to each other, quietly, but not paying attention. And then the minister started talking about the love of Christ. And I felt this warmness in my heart when he mentioned how much Jesus loved me and how much he cared for me. And he said, no matter what you have done, no matter what you're going through, that Jesus loves you. And I felt this calling in my heart and began just to warm up. And I looked at my friend and he looked at me, and I told him, I'm going up there, because the minister had like come to Jesus meeting, come and receive Jesus. And I looked at him, I said, I'm going up there. And at the same time, he said, I'm going too. And we went up there and received Jesus. Receiving Jesus, it was probably the best feeling I ever felt in my life. The preacher came up to me, I couldn't give his name, but he just said, son, just let Jesus in. And once I let him in, things began to happen. I began to see the world in a different view. I'll give you a good experience. That same night I went home, and I was a big Tupac Shakur fan, and I listened to one of his CDs and one of my favorite songs on his album. And I began to hear just these words that I was used to saying, these cuss words. And it began to really, really made me feel bad for saying them. And I had a heart change. Now, from that point, I received Jesus, but I didn't have a spiritual anchor. I didn't have anybody to teach me how to live a Christian life or what was the next step for a Christian life. So I was still getting in trouble as a Christian. I got involved in football. I got involved in sports, which I was really good at. I had a scholarship to go to Penn State, but that got ruined just because as I got older, my senior year, this is when I found Christ. And I noticed that my mom, she was working, and she was working for Sears, and she had an accident where a machine fell on her knee and shattered it. And I began to go to work. My senior year I dropped out. I started working at McDonald's, and my mom thought I was going to school, and I wasn't. I had my work clothes in my backpack, and I would go to work instead of school. And then how I got caught on that was my football coach caught me because I wasn't going to practice. And he came to the McDonald's that I was working at and asked me what I was doing and said, you ruined your life. You ruined your career. At that point, too, I thought I had ruined everything that God had for me. And so I took that in and was kind of like, oh no, here I am again in the same point that I was before, even having God in my life. And then I met a family, the Andersons, and they took me in. My father, I call him my father, Jim Anderson, started talking about how to live a godly life. They took me in and they really showed me the ropes, really teaching me what God does and how he works in our lives. And that's when I started getting the calling. I had a youth pastor by the name of Pastor G, and he was really wanted by another spiritual father who really taught me how to grow. And I wanted to be just like him. I wanted to be a youth pastor. The Andersons paid for my college to go to a Bible school that I went to. And I really just fell in love with God. I found peace in him and peace in his understanding. Having to overcome what people said, what they said about me. And, like when my family would say that I wouldn't amount to anything because I was nobody. Having people who follow God and the ones that I talk about being my spiritual fathers, teaching me that that's not who I was. That's not who I was. I was somebody different in Jesus. And I began to identify myself in Christ. And when I started to do that, I started to see myself a different person. I began to really understand the Bible, that I didn't have to be what the streets said I had to be. I didn't have to be what somebody told me that I had to be, that I can be what God wanted me to be. And that really changed my life. Bible school, I found my wife. Her parents were pastors here in Longview, Texas. And we moved here and we began to serve here in the church for 21 years. We served as a youth pastor. I served for 15 years. And now this year we became the senior pastors of Breakthrough Warrior Church. So when I became a youth pastor, I began to actually lean towards the kids that didn't have nobody in their life. I began to mentor them in a way that I would want somebody to mentor me. And many of those kids would still to this day consider me to be their father figure in their life. So it was a great experience to actually feel that way. And I know that's how God feels about us. I know He feels exactly the same way. When we were lost and felt like there was no point in the world, and then when we found Jesus, God no longer just became God, He became our Father, and He began to love on me. And I really think that that's how we should be as spiritual leaders. I see the hope that God has for me. He still has a lot more to do with me. The hope of Jesus Christ keeps me going. I could have been, be honest, I should have been dead a long time ago, the way my life was going. But that hope in Jesus, that hope that He loved me and that He was going to change me for the good. I'm a living proof that God can do anything with anybody. You know, I was always taught that I was going to be a nobody. I was going to be just somebody sitting in jail. But if I would have let those people's thoughts change my life or change the way I thought about myself, I would be those things. But God has something different. And I hung out with people who believed in me and actually would speak life into me. And I took those words and look where I'm at now. I have a beautiful wife. I have 4 beautiful kids. We're pastors of a beautiful church. God is doing great things, and I know He can do great things for you.